And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 170th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on November 24th, 2020, where I'm your host, Nithin Krishnan. Here with me tonight is my usual partner, Matt Lukens. Matt, how's life? Thanksgiving week is upon us. Indiana football had a ridiculous game on Saturday. What's going through your mind here on this Tuesday night?
I'm just proud of the boys. I know we came up short against Ohio State. I was exhausted. I'm going to tell you that I was not in the best mindset for watching the game, as I helped my younger brother, who is at IU, move back down to Florida for Thanksgiving break. Of course, they don't go back to school until February, so we moved most of his stuff out of his room. So I flew up on Friday afternoon, and we drove back, and because I wanted to watch the Ohio State game from the comfort of my home, and it's a 17-hour drive to my house from Bloomington, we did the entire 17-hour drive overnight. So we did the drive, got home at like 7 a.m., and then I absolutely crashed and then woke up at noon for the Ohio State game. I was actually praying in advance that the Ohio State game would be a nightcap game so I could actually get some decent sleep.
Yeah.
Of course, that was not the case. So, of course, I'm sitting there watching the game, basically hungover from 23 hours of traveling and trying to watch the game. So I'm going to let Nithin take for most of the takes in the Ohio State game. But I am home, I am safe, and everything is going well in the Lukens household.
Yeah, we've got a blockbuster episode for all of you tonight. Whenever you choose to listen to this podcast, we're going to recap the Ohio State game. We're going to preview the Maryland football game on Saturday, which, cross our fingers, knock on wood, happens without any sort of cancellation. And then the majority of our episode is going to be an IU basketball season preview with action starting Wednesday night / tomorrow night. Based on where we're recording this. So, wow. Let's just dive right in. Yeah, Ohio State, the number 3 team in the country, the number 4 team, according to the most recently released CFP rankings, whatever. They beat Indiana 42-35 on Saturday, but a game that the Buckeyes initially led 35-7 a few minutes into the third quarter. Indiana remains number 12 in the AP poll, ahead of teams like Georgia and Oklahoma. The Hoosiers were ranked number 12 in the CFP, the inaugural CFP rating show that took place earlier tonight. It's the first time I use in the CFP rankings, which is great to see. Big time stats from Saturday. I mean, we're gonna dive into the craziness of the game, but Michael Penix was 27-51 for 491 yards. 5 touchdowns and a crucial interception. Ty Freifogel had another monster game, 7 for 218 and 3 touchdowns. Miles Marshall and David Ellis each topped 80 receiving yards. Whop Phillier chipped in with 6 catches and a game-tying touchdown in the first half. Lots of defenders made noise. Micah McFadden, Jamar Johnson. Jamar had 2 interceptions off of Justin Fields, who entered the game with none on the year. And how about big Jerome Johnson, who had a sack and an interception too? The team had 5 sacks of Justin Fields total, 3 picks, 6 pass breakups. Crazy game, Matt. As you were watching it, nationally speaking, people were proud of how Indiana fought. As you were watching it on Saturday, I mean, what was going through your mind sort of around halftime? And then what was going through your mind as the game ended? Talk me through what you were thinking as you were watching a crazy, crazy game go down in Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, my halftime thoughts were, are you kidding me? This is the tale of every IU football game from the beginning of time, basically, since the dinosaurs last walked the earth, which is that we find some way to shoot ourselves in the foot, some bad luck happens, something, right? You have the Jamar Johnson interception. I think this is the second half that we fumble, but it's like examples of these kinds of plays. The David Ellis catch that puts us inside the red zone. I believe it's 21-7 at that point. Or it's 14-7 or 21-7. We're coming back.
Yep.
We're in the red zone, and he fumbles it on a large play. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, oh my God, play after play. So I'm sitting there at halftime going, we could not have had a worse start. And second, Like, we couldn't have a worse finish to the half. So I'm sitting there like, this game should be 14-14 or 21-21. This should be a tied game. We played like a tied game, but they're up by 2 scores. I'm just sitting there, or 2.5 scores, or 3 scores. I'm sitting there like depressed, right? I'm like, I can't believe that this is what has happened to us. But there we are, sitting at half, and it's 28-7. I'm like, I can't believe this. And then, of course, they come out and score a touchdown on the first drive to start the second quarter. So, Nithin, talk about what you were thinking about after we're down now 35-7.
I mean, for a lot of those reasons, I was sitting there at halftime going, it's 28-7, but I think IU still has a chance in this game. Full disclosure, swear to God. At halftime, I said, there were so many breaks going against IU. They had that snap over Penix's head in the first quarter. They had a Ty Freifogel drop on a 4th and 2 in the first half. You talked about the Ellis fumble as Indiana was going and trying to score. I said, Indiana still got a shot, but they can't let it get to 35-7. And what happened? Ohio State made it 35-7. And at that point, I said, you know what? Play hard, make it respectable, don't quit. Do the type of stuff that Tom Allen is obviously embedding into these players over the last few months, if not few years, and just try to look good. Because if you can make a case as the second best Big Ten team, well, the New Year's 6th spot awaits you as an at-large team if that's what the CFP committee believes in. So I said, hey, just make it respectable. Penn State lost to Ohio State by 13. Can you make it a 14-point game? Rutgers lost to Ohio State by 21 or 22. Can you make it a 2 or 3 touchdown deficit? And lo and behold, not only did Indiana do that and make it look respectable, they made it 42-35 with 10 minutes to go.
Yeah.
I was watching that game and Ty Freifogel was dunking on Ohio State's secondary. Even the great corner they had, Sean Wade. Michael Penix was throwing missiles all over the field, looking like one of the best quarterbacks we've seen, not only at Indiana but across all of college football. It's crazy. He finished with just 5 yards short of the single game passing yard record at Indiana, and I know for sure his performance on Saturday was way better than Richard Lego's against Wake Forest. Lego set the record. I think he had 5 picks in that game. Penix was obviously much more impressive, especially in the second half. And I was sitting there 10 minutes to go going, this is anyone's game.
Yeah.
How do we get to this point? Ohio State is one of the cream of the crop programs in college football. There's just 3 of them. It's Alabama, and it's Clemson, and it's Ohio State. And really, you can probably argue Alabama and Clemson are a notch above. But in general, those are the 3 programs that run college football right now. And Indiana outscored these guys 28-7 to basically put themselves right back in it. Now, Ohio State just had a little bit too much, and Indiana just seemed to run out of gas just a little bit at the end, which is why we're watching this as a 42-35 final. But holy smokes, teams don't go on runs like that against Ohio State, and that cemented for me, hard line, 100%, no doubt about it. Not only is this Indiana team for real, they're one of the 10 best teams in college football right now. And I think that's something we were curious about going into this game. Based on how things go, is this team really number 9 in the country? Are they really number 10 in the country? Well, the answer to that is yes. There's no way you disagree with that, Matt, right? They are clearly better than this year a team like Oklahoma, for example, or a team, a team ranked somewhere below them in the teams. A team like Oregon, a team like North Carolina or Texas Tech. Not Texas Tech. A team like North Carolina, for example, or a Miami. Like, Indiana's better than all those teams.
Yeah, I honestly believe that we are a competent running game away from being a fully fledged, almost unstoppable team. Like, our wide receiver core is one of the best in the nation, like a Ty Freifogel. You have Watt Fillier, right? He didn't even play that well on Saturday, and we still had like 500 yards through the air. You have Miles Marshall and David Ellis. David Ellis had an atrocious game, and a lot of people will blame him for a lot of things that he should not get blamed for as a very young receiver, but he showed a lot of promise in that game. Peyton Hendershot in the passing game, again, had a couple drops on Saturday. I don't want to talk about it. Anyways, but still, look, this team is very good. Penix is one of the best quarterbacks. This offensive line gives him time to throw. It's the problem when we try to run the ball. It's just, I don't know what happens. But this defense held this high-powered Ohio State offense to 7 points in the second half.
Oh, man.
Seven
offensive, and they had 7 defensive points. Yeah,
they had 7 defensive points, but the high-powered Ohio State offense only scored 7 points. And to end the game, they scored a touchdown on the first drive. 6 plays, 75 yards to start the quarter. It was interception, punt, missed field goal, punt, downs, punt. That was the final series for Ohio State. This defense is elite. They're extremely good. They're a great unit, led by our secondary that picked off Justin Fields for the same amount of picks that he has thrown in his entire career. His entire playing career. He's thrown 3 interceptions. He threw 3 in this game. Like, that is unbelievable. We are so good. We are a great football team. We should be absolutely disappointed that we did not go into Columbus and come out with a win, because that was a winning football team. And the national media wants to spin it as, Ohio State isn't as good as we thought there was. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. That is complete and utter BS. Just because you haven't been covering. Yeah, just because the AP poll didn't have an IU symbol last year for football that they could use when they ranked us, just because this team is going to be the first program in history to hit 600 losses or 700 losses in the FBS, doesn't mean we can't have a winning program, okay? Doesn't mean that we can't compete in big games against Ohio State. Doesn't mean we can't have NFL caliber talent that can go head to head with what Ohio State has. Yes, Ohio State's defense was worse than we thought. Yes, the Big Ten maybe isn't as good as we thought it was going to be going into the year, but this Indiana team is good. We are worthy of a top 10 ranking. We are 12th in the poll. That's also BS. We should not have dropped out of the top 10. And we'll be playing in a New Year's Six Bowl after we kick Wisconsin's butt, we kick Maryland's butt, we kick Purdue's butt, and then we kick whoever we play in the 9th game, whether it's Iowa or we play Wisconsin again, which I don't think we could do, but whether it's Iowa or it's Nebraska, Alabama, I don't care. We are going to be, whoever is in that 9th game will be going into a New Year's Six Bowl 8-1. You can put my money down on it. Thank you.
Wow. I love it. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said because it's strange to be in a position waking up on Sunday morning and going, what should have been? Like, what if, right? It was weird waking up on Sunday morning because on one side you're like, hey, Indiana fought hard. They scratched and clawed back from 35-7 down. But your beliefs were shared by head coach Tom Allen, quarterback Michael Penix, wide receiver Ty Freifogel, corner Taiwan Mullen, all the players who spoke post-game. Excuse me, it was Jamar Johnson who spoke post-game, not Taiwan Mullen. But all 4 players explicitly stated, we left some plays out there on the field. Ohio State executed a little better than we did over the 4 quarters because the first half, Indiana was just, I don't know if it was jitters. I don't know if it was a clear elevation in the level of opponent. No matter what you believe about Ohio State, they're clearly better than any of the 4 teams Indiana faced going into that game.
Combined.
There was crappy weather, which I know both teams have to play with, but Indiana maybe struggled with that a little bit more than they would have liked. All of which are reasons why, what should have been is a perfectly legitimate question to ask. Indiana should have won that game on Saturday. That's what it comes down to. Indiana should have won, but hey, shoulda, woulda, coulda only takes you so far. IU still 4-1. Completely agree they shouldn't have dropped outside the top 10. But now here they are with Maryland coming up on Saturday.
The play that irks me the most from this game is the pick 6, because you look at Ohio State's offense wasn't able to get anything done against this defense down the stretch. Like they had 11-play drive for 68 yards. But they turned it over on downs, and that was their longest drive of the half outside of their touchdown drive to start the half. They could not get anything done on offense, and that one unlucky pick, I mean, it wasn't really unlucky. It was really good coverage from Ohio State.
Yeah.
And Penix, again, rightfully so, trusts his arm to make a really tough throw from the opposite hash to the opposite sideline.
Yeah.
And that's like almost a 50-yard throw was like a 10-yard game. And it's an NFL caliber throw that he almost made, and it's a tight window to fit it into. It's just, it sucks that that's the play that separates the teams, but you can go back and count on multiple different things that went. But we outplayed Ohio State. Our defense outplayed their offense. Our offense outplayed their defense. It's just we did not make the winning plays when we needed to.
Yeah, just also, too many mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened on that last play. We were doing the laterals, but I am of the vein in college football that laterals only work in the Boise State style, where you have crossers on a Hail Mary and then you use a misdirection to try to throw the players off. That, to me, that's the only way that works. The Rutgers play was fluky and it still got called back. So I would much rather throw it deep and try something weird there than do a lateral play at the end.
Yeah, I mean, all that is stuff I agree with. Penix agrees with you. He just said clearly enough, simply enough, it was a poor decision, poor throw. Needed a little bit more space to get that football into, I think it was Miles Marshall there on the sideline before Sean Wade returned it to the house. So yeah, Indiana's 4-1 right now, still number 12 in the AP and college football playoff rankings, with the Maryland Terrapins coming up on Saturday. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week in IU Sports. And look, we talked about Ty Freifogel dunking on the Ohio State secondary. There are a couple more sports picking up this week, but I think it needs to be clearly stated on our podcast, at least, that Ty Freifogel won the week. And not only did he win the week as far as his 200 plus receiving yard effort, he also won the week in that he was the first two-time Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week in the same year since Nate Sudfeld back in 2015, as far as IU guys are concerned. And then he also won the week in that he is clearly on everyone's NFL draft radar now, going into the next level. Freifogel is a senior. I know there's some quirky eligibility things this year in college football, but you can all but assure that he's going to move on to the next level coming up in the spring. He wasn't on many draft boards at the start of the year. I don't think he was on any of them. Now, clearly, he's getting noticed across the college football landscape. In fact,
he's not the only one on this team that's also getting noticed. Say Penix is getting noticed. I saw some Jerome Johnson references, people talking about him as well, and Jamar Johnson, speaking of the Johnsons, talking about NFL talk. So this team, the more we're on national television, we had the highest rated game, by the way, on national television. ABC 12 o'clock usually does good, but we were on Fox, so it's even weirder. But yeah, the 12 o'clock window, we were the highest rated game on television. So the national attention is finally getting to this team. This team is absolutely worthy of it.
Yeah, they were getting a little bit of national attention after that Penn State game, the Michigan win. It's blatant now. I mean, everyone's going to be watching Indiana.
We're going to get game day in Bloomington for Wisconsin if Wisconsin plays. Now, that's a whole other issue since they just got their game canceled.
Yeah, there's a whole different. First of all, that game's in Madison. So
is it in Madison?
That's in Madison. So
I thought it was
if not this, and I don't expect Indiana to get game day this year, but certainly think something like that in 2021 is possible, especially if Ohio State returns to play Bloomington, to play Indiana in that game. So that's the Ohio State game. And now, much like you and I have to do, Indiana's got to put it behind them and look forward to this really weird Maryland team that's coming up to play Indiana on Saturday. The Terps have had cancellations the last 2 weeks. They were scheduled to play Ohio State a couple of weeks ago, back on November 14th. Didn't happen. They were scheduled to play Michigan State on November 21st. Didn't happen. Their last game, though, was November 7th at Penn State, and they won 35-19 against the Penn State team that was fighting for something compared to now. That game was one where Maryland led 35-7 in the first half, as crazy as that sounds, before letting Penn State score a couple touchdowns there in garbage time. So strange to say that. I mean, 2020 in a nutshell, right?
Sure.
Look, Indiana's favored to win this game by 11.5 points. So Vegas opened up saying Indiana by 14, but it's moved down now to 11.5. The over-under is 62.5. So the prediction there, you do some quick math, it's supposed to be something like 37-26, 37-25 Indiana for a noon kickoff on Saturday, a game that will take place on ESPN2. The forecast will be sunny and 49 degrees. Talia Tagovailoa is Maryland's quarterback. Yeah, that last name especially just sound familiar. But Talia's making a name for himself. He's been quite impressive this year. He's slinging the football around, getting it to his receivers, Dante Demas and Raheem Jarrett. They've got a steady offensive line that's going to pose a little bit of a threat for Indiana. So make no mistake about it, Matt. Indiana can't overlook Maryland. I know it's a trap game. It is a red alert trap game sandwiched between Ohio State and Wisconsin. Talk to us a little bit about what to expect from Maryland and how Indiana needs to approach this game because, hey, 5-1 is on the line. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, what to expect from Maryland, and I'm going to keep it quick because we want to get to some basketball talk. They're a high-powered offense. Like Mike Loxley teams like to score a lot of points. He's a former offensive coordinator, so that's not surprising to me in the slightest. Of course, we talked about Tualia being Tua's brother, who's the quarterback for the Dolphins and former Alabama famous, and he transferred from Alabama this year to play at Maryland. They're a good offense. They have some playmakers at wide receiver. They have some decent running backs, and they have a decent offensive line. But they are no Ohio State, and they've been off for weeks, and they're playing this defense, and he's a young quarterback. To me, this is a buzzsaw waiting to happen in Bloomington because the over is 60. I think the chunk of the points is going to go to IU. This looks like a 45-14 kind of game, in my opinion, just because they've been off for weeks. We looked at Wisconsin, who just came back and played Northwestern after being off for weeks, and they just looked completely out of sorts. They had a young quarterback as well in Graham Mertz. This is going to be the same kind of thing. They don't even have their head coach on the sideline. He's going to be coaching virtually because he's dealing with sitting there with COVID, and they still have players out on top of the fact they've been sitting out for 2 weeks because some of the players are still in COVID protocol. So I just don't see this Maryland team posing much of a threat for an upset or a trap game, like you said. I feel like, if anything, they might give us a little bit of a scare. They might be a little bit spooky. They might be a high-scoring game if they show up to play. But this Maryland defense is nothing to be afraid of. Again, this is a Maryland defense that got scored on a lot by Penn State and got scored on a lot by Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah,
garbage. So yeah. I don't want to downplay Maryland too much, but I'm completely downplaying it.
I love it. I mean, yeah, this Maryland team I think is going to be fired up, right? This is what I expected sort of out of that Rutgers game a few weeks ago. All of a sudden now Indiana is ranked. Now Indiana's number 12. Maryland's got a chance to make some noise with the win. They're going to be fired up and ready to go. Obviously, they haven't played in 3 weeks either. So that's where it's at. Talia's come out and he's had a 67% completion percentage going at 9 yards per attempt. The Pro Football Focus guys love him. The one receiver I want to highlight is Raheem Jarrett. He's a 5-star guy. He's a true freshman, but he is a 5-star recruit. Those guys usually end up going to the Texases and the Alabamas and the Floridas of the world. Ohio State and Clemson. Raheem Jarrett said, I'm going to come and play for Maryland. He had a couple touchdowns against Penn State, big play touchdowns too. So Tywan Mullen and Reese Taylor are going to have to watch out there. That's one key matchup. The other big matchup I'm looking at is, hey, can Indiana finally start running the ball? I mean, yeah. Please, at some point, they're averaging less than 3 yards a carry. They're averaging less than 3 yards a carry. Both Tom Allen and Nick Sheridan spoke, plentiful how much they have to revamp the running game coming up. They use the word creative a lot. They use the word formations a lot, so you might see some weird stuff that Indiana throws in there to try to get some more running room. It would help a lot if Caleb Jones came back. He's missed the last couple of weeks, so Indiana hopefully can have him up front to pave the way for Stevie Scott or Samson James or David Ellis or whoever is back there for Indiana in the running game. The thing is, Maryland was pretty stout in run defense against Penn State, but against Minnesota, they gave up a huge ton of rushing yards. In fact, Minnesota went out there and ran for 260 in a game that the Terps won 45-44. So lots of opportunities up to come here against the Terps. I'm gonna say this game's gonna be a little bit tight. It's time for our predictions. We've talked about what to expect. And I'm saying, Indiana might look at this as a little trap game. I think it's going to be close. I think Indiana's going to win this one 35-27. I think Maryland's going to actually cover the 11.5 that it's at right now. I think Indiana will be fine as far as moving the ball is concerned. I am predicting, okay, everyone get ready for this. Pull over if you have to, if you're driving, or stop walking if you're walking. Indiana's going to get a defensive score in this game. Now, this Maryland offense is a big play offense. I think Indiana, whether it's Tyler Mullen or Jamar Johnson or whoever, is going to intercept a pass or force a fumble or something, return it to the house for 6. I think James Head is a defensive player to watch out for. I think Maryland's pretty stout in blocking the interior pressure. Look for those guys coming around the edge as Indiana faces Maryland on Saturday. I've got 35-27. The Hoosiers come out on top. Matt, what can I get a score from you as Indiana tries to win their 5th game of the season?
Like I said, 45-14 is my prediction. I don't think this is close. If it is close, we're not playing our best football, and I don't expect this Tom Allen team not to come out and play their best football because he's going to kick. But again, remember, relentless is the word of the week. Go kick their butt on Saturday and get a win in Bloomington.
I love it. So that's what we're expecting on Saturday. Matt's got it as a blowout. I've got it a little close, a little bit of a tight one. We'll see how it all plays out, assuming, of course, the game gets played. All right, Matt, it's time for our Big Ten picks of the week here as we wrap up the football part of the show. Lots to look at here as far as Big Ten play is concerned. Last week, your upset pick was Rutgers to beat Michigan, and it almost happened. Almost went against East Louisville. Oh, man, you wanted chaos, and you got chaos. It's just unfortunately Michigan had one more score in them. Your spread pick was Wisconsin covering against Northwestern, and the Wildcats ended up winning that one. So as you look at the Big Ten slate this week, you're 3-2 on your upsets, and you're 2-1 against the spread. People should be listening to what you have to say. Who you got as your upset this week, and what's your spread pick?
Yeah, okay. So my upset pick this week is, drumroll please, Penn State to get their first win against Michigan in the battle of absolutely miserable fan bases. There's really not. The thing is the upset pick is really hard to pick this week because I think there's a lot of really obvious favorites when it comes down to it. Again, Purdue is obviously going to beat Rutgers, and Rutgers is not that good, and Purdue's much better. Illinois is obviously going to lose to Ohio State. Iowa is going to beat a hapless Nebraska team, and Northwestern is going to beat the hapless Michigan State, and I don't think that Maryland is going to beat Indiana. So therefore, it comes down to one game only, and I have to pick an upset, so that's Penn State over Michigan. Now, if I have to look at the cover, the over-under, what am I looking at there? Give me Ohio State and a pissed-off Ohio State to absolutely destroy Illinois. The line is 28, and I assume that I'd be surprised if Illinois scored the ball this game. Let's just put it that way. So give me Ohio State in that one.
I love it. As I look at the games on the docket, I think Michigan State's going to be a little thorny. I think they're going to be, and I use that word specifically, by the way, I think they're going to go with Peyton Thorne as their quarterback. I mean, thorny. Yeah, because as you've talked about before, Rocky Lombardi's kind of crap. So I think they're going to go with Peyton Thorne to beat Peyton Ramsey in a weird sort of crazy late November Big Ten game in East Lansing. So that's my upset pick. As far as the spread's concerned, man, there are a lot of strange games out here. I'm going to take Iowa covering 13.5 at home against Nebraska. I think the Cornhuskers will be fired up and ready to go, but I've never been a big Nebraska guy. I kind of like making fun of them, in all honesty, because a lot of people go, oh, they're coming back. They're going to be the year. I mean, they beat Penn State, and for 6 days, Nebraska fans say, oh, they're great, and they're going to do this, and they're going to come back. And then what happened? They lost at home to Illinois. I mean, are you serious?
To say, but they're the IU basketball of the football universe.
It's worse, Matt. I mean, I know it's a little bit worse. It's a lot worse. It's easy to criticize IU basketball, and we're going to dive into our basketball season preview here in just a second. It's worse. I mean, they are Indiana's won Big Ten championships recently in basketball, and Indiana's had a prominent moment, right, with the Watt shot in 2011. Nebraska has had none of that. They haven't won their conference in forever.
Season a couple years ago.
Man, I mean, they were, they haven't won their conference in forever. They don't have a memorable moment. They threw a Hail Mary for a touchdown against Northwestern in a meaningless game a few years ago. Maybe that counts, but nothing quite like that. So yeah, that's what I've got. I've got Michigan State upsetting Northwestern, and then Iowa covering 13.5. That game's on Friday, by the way. It's going to be fun to have some Thanksgiving weekend football coming up. But that wraps up our football part. Man, so much to talk about. But Indiana's in a good spot here as we keep this football season rolling along. Now it's time for a social media shout out, Matt. We've talked a lot about football. We're going to get to men's basketball in a minute. But remember, the women's team is pretty darn good. So talk to me, Matt, about our IU women's team, who's ranked number 15 in the country.
Yeah, they start tomorrow at 1:30 Eastern time against Eastern Kentucky. That is a road game. That's a home game. And then they have a road game against Kentucky on December 6th. So we get the IU Kentucky game, just not in basketball, but just not the right sex. The women's team will be playing. But no, they're going to be really, really good. Look, led by senior guard Ali Patberg, who's just one of the best point guards in America. There's a big void to fill in the point guard spot since Sabrina Ionescu left Oregon, and Ali might be the best one in America. We have a transfer coming in from Notre Dame, a forward transfer whose name is escaping me currently. We have a really, really deep roster. This team is going to be a lot of fun to watch. I highly recommend, if you can get your hands on an IU women's basketball game somehow, if it's broadcast, if it's on Big Ten Network, please watch it, because they're going to be so good. And they are actually favored, I believe, to win the Big Ten this year. They are. So we might have a Big Ten championship in basketball coming by the way of the women's team. So they're going to be very good and going to obviously make a deep run in the tournament as well. Yeah, I mean, it's too bad we didn't get to watch them play in the NCAA tournament last year. Nicole Cardano-Hillary is a transfer from George Washington. There's also Danielle Patterson, who came over from Notre Dame. Ali Patberg came over from Notre Dame. So clearly, this women's team's loaded. The Eastern Kentucky game's at home, just to be clear, tomorrow. You got an Assembly Hall doubleheader on Wednesday. The road game, Kentucky. That one's broadcast on ESPNU, by the way. So that's one way you can watch this women's team coming up as they look forward to what should be a very successful 2020-21 season. But here we go, Matt. It's time for a men's basketball preview. The season starts Wednesday night. We're recording this on Tuesday, so that's tomorrow night for us against Tennessee Tech, a game where the Hoosiers are favored to win by 21. So it should be a 1-0 start to the season. If it's not, we will have an emergency podcast on Thursday to extinguish. We will both bring fire extinguishers. The turkey will be ruined. Thanksgiving will be a failure. And as far as all the crappy stuff that's happened in 2020, losing to Tennessee Tech wouldn't be quite at the top. But, it would be a very, very sad and alarming footnote to what's been a really
horrible year. But look, this men's basketball team is unranked as far as the preseason top 25 is concerned. They are 5th among teams receiving votes, so you can call that a de facto 30th when you look at that. They're the 26th in the Ken Palm ratings with a 40th rated offense and a 16th rated defense in college basketball. In the Lunardi bracketology that came out this morning, Indiana's an 8th seed. So, that's where Joe Lunardi sees Indiana right now. That's where he projects Indiana to finish at the end of the year. Kenya Hunter's a new assistant. He comes in and he's got some wise things to say and great practice and drilling abilities as you head into another fun college basketball season. Devontae Green and Deron Davis are off the team. They graduated. They moved on. Justin Smith also transferred. He moved on to Arkansas. So we're going to be able to watch him play in the SEC. Tomorrow's game, or Wednesday's game to be clear, against Tennessee Tech, an 8 p.m. Eastern start on Big Ten Network. And then you've got the Maui Invitational coming up Monday. So Matt, as you look at this team, Archie's going into his 4th season. He's 55-43 in his time here. What are your high-level thoughts on this basketball team as far as the guys who left, the newcomers that are here, and basically, what are some of the key points of emphasis you're looking at heading into this really, really important basketball season for Archie Miller and the Hoosiers?
Yeah, and I think everything starts with what his overall record has been through his first 3 years, right? 55-43, just above 500. And when you think of IU basketball, that record is unacceptable for a 3-year stretch, 55-43. We are a program that, like Nebraska, prides itself at competing for championships, right? Like Ohio State football, like a Michigan football. And I think we're in a position a little bit akin to what Michigan football is in, right? Not a lot of expectations going into the season, a coach that has mildly underperformed. And we're sitting here trying to decipher between tidbits of IU basketball propaganda what this team is going to look like in the most crazy, unprecedented offseason that we've ever had. And you add in us losing our second highest scorer and and Justin Smith to transfer, and we're looking at something that is just we have not seen maybe in the history of IU basketball. So from a top-level perspective, we are going to miss Devontae. I'll go with the people that are leaving. We're going to miss Devontae. We're not going to miss him passing the ball into the third row where he should have just done an easy bounce pass into Trace. We're not going to miss him missing or going 9 out of 10 from 3-pointers, then the next game going 0 from 14 and continuing to shoot for no reason. But we are going to miss his score. Deron we're going to miss because he brought depth and he brought experience. Was he a little bit slow on defense? Yes. Did he get into foul trouble a lot? Yes, but at least he was a body to plug in there that we don't have this year. So we're going to miss Deron that way. And then Justin Smith, our best defensive player, arguably, and one of our highest offensive efficient players on offense, surprisingly. Transferred out. Now, some might say that's a positive, and some might say that is a negative. I am here in the club that's saying I am waiting to see how the team plays and who takes his spot before I hit the gavel and say whether it was a positive or a negative. And then you add in the newcomers, right? Nithin, you have a 5-star, Christian Lander, reclassifying, going up a class, something that we haven't dealt with, right? We had Brace Thompson go up a class, but he then redshirted that year. So we haven't seen a 17-year-old play for IU basketball yet, 18, just turned 18-year-old play for IU basketball yet, but we get to see that in Lander, and he's got a lot of promise, but can he step in? Is he the savior? Is he who we need? I'm not sure, and we're going to be relying on an 18-year-old for that. I know what I was doing at 18, and it's definitely not going to be reliable. Leal, again, coming in as a Bloomington kid, can he shoot? Yes. Can he be physically ready for a Big Ten basketball 20-something game schedule? The jury's still out on that.
Time will tell. John Rothstein's got his moles in Bloomington, though, and moles like Trey Galloway, but we'll see what happens.
Do like Trey Galloway. That is something that we've heard. Again, 6'4", tall guard, can defend. Is he going to be the key in the line unlocking Trace Jackson Davis? And is he going to solve all of our shooting woes? I don't know. And putting the pressure on a freshman is a little bit too much. And then we hear Geronimo, right? Geronimo, he can jump out of the gym. But Archie on his radio show goes, yeah, some days he does like amazing things, and other days he does confusing things. And to me, that sounds a lot like Justin Smith. Makes me want to cry, but then I don't want to put the label of Justin Smith on a freshman. So we're sitting here like he's going to be a bit raw. So do we find a savior in that class that is going to fix our 3-point shooting and our free throw woes? Nithin, like, tell me, what are your thoughts?
I hope so. If you're watching on our YouTube, I've got my prayer hands together, looking skyward. Hopefully someone steps up here and bangs down a few threes, because Devontae Green's absence does mean Indiana's biggest weakness, the 3-point shooting, is almost a bigger weakness. Going into the season, we haven't seen how smooth Anthony Leal's jump shot is. We haven't talked about Jerome Hunter yet. Can he connect from distance at a frequent rate? Obviously, it's going to be incumbent upon him more than anyone to fill Justin Smith's shoes. I liked how you said you were unsure about Smith being a positive or negative situation. Whew, man, as crazy as it sounds, he filled a lot of roles for Indiana last year. He started every game. He led the team in minutes played. To me right now, his absence is a problem for IU. But of course, if Jerome Hunter can come out, bang down some threes, play 30 minutes a game, we're all feeling good. Overall, Matt, like the 3-point shooting, as I've talked about, is the biggest concern I have going into the season. Archie Miller earlier today in a press conference said that protecting the basketball is going to be the most important aspect of the season. And I don't have nearly the basketball expertise that Archie Miller does, but I almost disagree with him. I think you've got to hit a few threes, especially at Indiana, if you want to win basketball games and make it to the NCAA tournament and win in the NCAA tournament. And Archie said Al Durham is a guy who can do that. Jerome Hunter is a guy that can do that. And I think we're going to be excited to see what Anthony Leal can do from distance. I'm really excited to watch him. Apparently, Christian Lander swished a bunch of jump shots during a scrimmage that they played earlier this week or late last week as well.
Apparently, he didn't hit. Yeah, apparently he's the second coming of Steph Curry, because he just shoots and it just hits nothing but net. So we'll take that.
All right, we might have to cut this out, Matt. But what are your thoughts on calling him Swishchin Lander? Huh? Appropriate silence. All right, here we go. So Matt, when you look at
no,
Swishchin.
That is not landing anytime soon.
Okay. All right. So here's a natural pause in case we need to cut. Great. So Matt, now that we've talked about all that, when you look at this roster, talk to me about the starting lineup you're expecting to see against Tennessee Tech. There is a little injury concern with Joey Brunk. He's got a sore back. Let's assume he's healthy, even if he misses that Tennessee Tech game to start the season. But assuming Joey Brunk's availability and good health for this team going into this Tennessee Tech opener, who do you see as the starting lineup for IU as the season gets underway, as crazy as it sounds, in less than 24 hours?
I don't know if I'm over-analyzing this or just being crazy, but I'm fairly certain that my horoscope telling me the exact numbers that I can play on the lottery to win the next $1 million there's a better chance of that happening than me guessing the correct starting lineup. However, I will give you my best guess, which is that I will assume that Rob Finney will be starting at point guard, because he is a junior and apparently he's had his best offseason, according to Archie. And if this team is going to do anything, it has to be through Rob. Like, it just has to be. So good vibes. Rob starting. Second, we have a senior captain, and that is Al Durham. I am assuming he's going to be the second guard in the lineup. I'm adding Al. Now, the big question is, who's the third guard? Who's the third guy, right? I assume Trace is going to start at forward. So we have 3 out of the 5. The next 2 positions could go any which way. So I'm assuming, I've heard Joey Brunk has a bit of back stiffness. So I'm assuming he is not going to start. So I'm going to go with Race Thompson to start. So there's 4 out of the 5. And then the third one who I've talked about, the position I talked about previously, the third go multiple different ways. You could start Christian Lander. You could go smaller. You could start Armand Franklin and have a guy that can switch. And he's not smaller, but it's also not bigger. It's just a very in-between lineup. Or you could have somebody we talked about, Jerome Hunter. For me, I think he's going to go with the guy that played the most minutes out of those 3, and that is Armand Franklin. And we'll be playing 3 guards. We'll have 2 guards that can switch onto multiple players, play multiple positions on the court. You have a very versatile defender in Race Thompson, and then you have 2 should be great players in Rob Finney and Trace Jackson Davis. So that's my current prediction of the starting lineup and my thought process.
Yeah, I like that. And just to bounce that back to you, if and when Joey Brunk is at full health, do you swap Race Thompson out for Brunk, or do you ride with Thompson, especially if he plays well?
See, I know Archie through 3 years of watching it and being in pain, and I know he likes to be stubborn about his starting lineups, and I'm assuming that he wants continuity from last season to this season. And Trace and Joey have played a lot of minutes together. So I'm going to assume he's going to want to put Joey in the lineup. I, as a basketball mind, would say Race Thompson and Trace have the best. They have the best chemistry together. I think they play the best. I think they cover the most positions. I think they work well together. They complement each other. I want to say that's our best starting lineup. I think they both offensively and defensively work better together. That's my opinion. Whether Archie chooses to follow that same thought process is yet to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, I liked a lot of what you said there. I also agree that a Trace Jackson Davis, Race Thompson front court really can help Indiana, especially in Big Ten play. But I've also watched Archie Miller for 3 years, Matt, and the way I think about it is that Archie loves Jerome Hunter, and Archie loves having a reliable wing player out there, and Jerome Hunter is the most reliable option we've got as far as one of those 6'7" forwards that can guard multiple positions. So the way I look at it, I've got the backcourt of Finney and Durham with Hunter, Jackson Davis, and Brunk starting. Of course, if Brunk can't go in one of these early season games, then Race Thompson slots right in. But I think as long as Joey Brunk's healthy, he's going to get the starting nod. Of course, the next question is how much of this matters, right? Because Archie Miller's talked many times before how really the guys who finish the game are more important than the guys who start the game, and the minutes distribution changes on a game-to-game basis. So you better believe we're going to see Anthony Leal play, and we're going to see Trey Galloway, and we're going to see Jordan Geronimo and Armand Franklin and a lot of these other guys that we haven't mentioned as we go into this 2020-21 basketball season. So much flexibility presenting itself to Archie Miller. He's got a lot of options at his disposal, and he made that extremely clear in his comments to the media earlier today. He's going to do a lot of switching. I believe used the term, in fact, not I believe, I know he used the term trial and error to describe what these first few games are going to be like. I know the Maui Invitational is a big tournament starting on Monday, but it's game number 2 and 3 and 4 of the season. You're going to see some experimenting going on even in that big tournament and up against some high caliber opponents. Who do you expect to step up, Matt? Like this year, lots of options. You could talk about a star like Trace Jackson Davis. You could talk about somebody who's returning like Armand Franklin or guards like Rob Finney and Al Durham. Who needs to step up this year for IU to have a successful season?
Everyone. That's the correct answer. I mean, when you look up and down, I'm sorry, that's just such a cliche answer. But everybody needs to step up and play better. Last year's performance was not great. We still made the tournament, but it was not great. And I'm sorry that is not appropriate to say about IU basketball. That is not becoming of the program, right? To say they were good but not great. Like, this is a program that just the money we put into it, the fans, we deserve a higher tier product than what has been put out on the court. So if you're going to get that, if you're going to compete in what is going to be a buzzsaw of a conference schedule, right? Like, we are playing in the hardest conference in America. The Big Ten is by far and away that this year. It's extremely deep. There's like 5 teams that can win the title, and there's like 9 good teams out of a 14-team conference. That's absurd. There's going to be 8 teams that make the tournament. So who needs to step up? It's everyone that needs to step up. And that includes Trace Jackson Davis, who had a great freshman year. That includes all the guards, and it includes the coaching staff. The coaching staff needs to step up as well. So everybody needs to step up in this program if we're going to have a good year.
Everybody. Scott Dolson needs to step up. The students need to step up. The alumni need to step up. Herman Wells needs to step up.
Get out of
Herman Wells needs to step up in his grave. Everyone on board. Hoosiers for life. To answer my own question, I'm gonna go with Rob Phinisee and Matt. Like it's no surprise, right? I mean, point guard runs the show in 2020 in the 2020 version of basketball, and for Rob Phinisee, this is junior year. It's a big year for him. A lot of times we talk about the freshman to sophomore leap. I think there's a big chance for a sophomore to junior leap here with Rob Phinisee. He was a 40% 3-point shooter last year until the final few games of the season. And look, with Christian Lander reclassifying a year up, if he wasn't fired up over the summer months to get into better shape and to work on his jump shot and to create some moves he can use in one-on-one isolation or become a more effective fast break player, as he goes one-on-one or even, 2-on-1 off some turnovers, Rob Phinisee's got to be that guy. He had to have taken the last few months seriously, hit the gym, watch the tape, talk to his coaches and to his teammates and figure out ways to get better. Because I do see a lot of positives in Rob Phinisee, and I've been a little hard on him here the last couple years, basically saying, look, the injuries aren't an excuse when you play. You've got to play at a higher level. I think we're going to see that out of him this year. Last season, Phinisee averaged 7 points a game and 3.5 assists. I think we're going to see upticks in those numbers, especially on a per minute basis. So he's my guy as I look ahead to this roster as far as someone who needs to step up. So here's the deal, Matt. I mean, the schedule has 7 non-conference games on it, and it's got 20 Big Ten games. And the Big Ten schedule was released last week, and you made it evidently clear that there's a group that can win it all. There's a bigger group that has a really good shot at making the tournament, and I'll add the fact that I think even the bottom feeding teams aren't that bad. No. I mean, Fred Hoiberg, former NBA coach, is coaching Nebraska. Chris Collins, a Coach K protege, he's running the Northwestern program. Penn State and Minnesota, even though they lost a lot of talent, they're going to be ready to go. And Purdue has had our number the last few years.
And Maryland.
And Maryland, yeah. I mean, Maryland, yeah, they lost a lot, with Anthony Cowan and Jalen Smith moving on. But wow, I mean, that just means you got an opportunity for a lot of other players to step in. So those, bottom 5, bottom 6 teams, they're going to be a pain in the butt on a nightly basis. The Big Ten schedule came out. Lots to discuss, but here's what we're going to do, Matt. Talk to me first about this non-conference slate that Indiana has. You start off with Tennessee Tech, almost a guarantee win. You've got the 3 Maui games, a road game against Florida State. You come back home to play North Alabama, and then you round it out with Butler and Indianapolis in that Crossroads Classic. As you look at those 7 games, does Indiana need to win all 7 for it to be a successful non-conference slate? If not, how many wins are you looking at here with the 7-game out of conference schedule?
I'll take a 5-win non-conference. We play 7 games. I'll accept 2 losses in the non-conference. Again, we're experimenting. It's early. We need to beat Providence. I don't care what the excuse is. We need to beat Providence because we need more than one marquee non-conference game. We have the the Florida State game. I don't care if we win or lose that game. That's going to be a good matchup for us. I just hope we play well in it and keep it close. That's all that matters to me. Butler, we should beat Butler. I'm sorry, they lost a lot from last year. We should beat Butler. North Alabama and Tennessee Tech, it goes without saying that we should beat those teams. But getting to a third game in the Maui Invitational, in my opinion, is a must. Playing teams like Texas and North Carolina for the national attention is a must, especially with what we lacked in recruiting in the last couple weeks. Is a must for this program. Anything more than 5 wins is icing on the cake for me, but 5 wins is probably what I'll be happy with.
Yeah, I think 5 is a good number if your 2 losses are to North Carolina and Florida State.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. If for whatever reason you stumble early on in Maui, or on the other side, if you make it to that final Maui game and face someone other than North Carolina, because North Carolina wasn't all that great last year, they're going to have a lot of trial and error on their end. If you play, a weaker team in that third game, someone like UNLV, if they make a dream run or something, okay. So that's where I'm at. If your 2 losses are North Carolina, Florida State, I think I'm okay. If your 2 losses are elsewhere, I think that's going to be disappointing. So to me, it's 5 if it's UNC and Florida State. It's 6 if it's just one of those. So
thank you. Yeah. So that's good to mention. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, exactly. And just to give some background, North Carolina is ranked 16th in the preseason AP poll. Texas, who is Indiana's likely Tuesday opponent, day 2 opponent in Asheville for the Maui Invitational, they're ranked 19th. Florida State's 21st. Providence, Indiana's guarantee opponent on Monday, is receiving votes. Not as many votes as Indiana, but they're getting some top 25 consideration going into that. So we talked a little bit about the non-conference slate. Let's dive into the conference schedule. And look, Matt, I think let's have some fun. Let's go through this and try to do a little game by game prediction here to round out our big Tuesday night blockbuster end of November Thanksgiving week Hoosier Sound episode. Let's go game by game here in conference play and see how Indiana does, because it's a big year for IU basketball. A lot of people are expecting big things out of this program. The Hoosiers got a pretty unfavorable set of games. It starts off somewhat easy, though, with the home opener against Northwestern. Matt, I've got the Hoosiers winning this one. Do you?
Yep.
Awesome. So they start off with a victory, but then a tough one. A day after Christmas showdown in Champaign against Illinois. Matt, win, loss?
Too much eggnog, a loss.
Oh boy, too much eggnog. I've also got a loss here too. I think Indiana will keep that game close, but Illinois
That's
obviously got
title contender. Illinois.
Yeah, they are exactly. Penn State follows a home game. I think Indiana bounces back with a win against the Penn State team that lost a lot. Do you agree?
I agree. And then on the 4th of January, I also agree that Indiana will beat Maryland at home. Yeah. So we have 2 cupcakes in a row. Oh, did I say cupcakes? Two wins in a row. Oh, my bad.
Oh, I love it. Indiana's going to have a relatively soft start to that schedule with really, you could argue their 3 easiest games of Big Ten play happen in the first 4. Depends what you think of Nebraska, as Indiana faces them a little bit later on in the season, but we'll get to that in a second. After beating Maryland, which I had as well, Indiana will be 3-1 in Big Ten play, and then they head to Madison to face a Badgers team that's predicted to win the Big Ten, or at least contend for that. Matt, how do you feel?
It's a contender. We are not a contender. That's a loss.
It's also Madison, even if we were.
Made me develop an Italian accent. It's making me mad.
It's also Madison, and I'm pretty sure Indiana hasn't won there since the British owned America. I think that's the thing. Like
at this point, yes. The
Louis,
dinosaurs we're talking to King Louis IV, and that's the last time.
That's right. Yep. The
And we
Amish.
ruled the kingdom of
Yeah,
Mass.
a lot of horse and buggy action. The Ford didn't come out with the Model T yet. Televisions didn't exist. So
I think we're all on the same timeline here.
So for those reasons, yeah, I've got Wisconsin winning. But then I've got the Hoosiers going to Lincoln and knocking off the Cornhuskers, another team that's expected to bring up the bottom of the Big Ten. Same for you?
Yeah, nobody will be throwing corn at us from the crowd. So 5,000.
Yeah, so far, a pretty interesting 6 games to start, right? It seems like it's pretty clear the games Indiana is expected to win. It's also pretty clear the games Indiana is expected to lose. Somewhat interesting swing game coming up on January 14th. Purdue comes to Bloomington. Under normal circumstances, I'd say Indiana's got to win this, but Matt Painter's found a way to beat the Hoosiers time and time again. What happens here?
We have to win. We actually have to win this game. Like, for my sanity. So IU beats Purdue.
I think Purdue's going to sneak up on people this year. I think this is going to be. I think it's going to be a top 25 matchup when it happens on January 14th. But I also do have Indiana winning. I almost just feel like Indiana's due for a win in this matchup.
I also feel bad that they lost Eric Hunter for the year, because I know it feels bad to feel bad for Purdue, but like they actually had a legit shot of being kind of a dark horse with Eric Hunter, and now they don't have him at all. And a guy like Jaden Ivey, but he's not going to step up to that much of a role. Yeah,
it's a lot to ask. Hunter's a great player. Love watching him. Road game in Michigan State, January 17th. MSU is supposed to take a step back, but they're always a well-coached and well-drilled team. I've got a loss here. What do you have?
I mean, we just talk about this for a second. You said Michigan State's supposed to take a step back, and they're ranked 13th preseason. Like,
must be nice.
This is where IU's supposed to be, by the way. I think Archie's got Izzo's number. So I'm going to go with a win against Michigan State here. And that would put us at 3 wins in a row following us losing in Wisconsin, which usually Wisconsin sparks our demise, but not this year.
I love that. Indiana goes into East Lansing and wins. Do they keep the hot streak going in Iowa City on January 21st?
Yeah. They do. I actually think they do. I like our matchup against Iowa. Again, this is a team we kept really close with. And both times, no, we played them once last year, I believe, in Assembly Hall. We played them last year. I like the matchup for Trey Jackson Davis against Luka Garza. I think we have the players this year to kind of match up defensively against them. And honestly, I think they're kind of overrated. So give me IU.
Yeah, I like that. I've got them losing to the Hawkeyes, but I do agree with your sentiment that
Andy over here,
that team is overrated. But it's a tough matchup, and that's where we're at. Indiana returns home to play a really good Rutgers team. What's going on here, Matt? January 24th, Rutgers at Indiana.
For whatever reason, Rutgers just has our number. And I'm going to assume that's going to continue. I had a 2 hot streak, but we lose at home to Rutgers.
Oh man, and I'm gonna have them bounce back against Rutgers. I think Rutgers. Yeah, I think it's gonna end up looking like a quality win.
Oh my god, I'm looking at this stretch right now. This stretch that IU plays is ridiculous. We'll talk about it.
Exactly. Buckle up. I mean, it started even earlier, right? It really starts with that home game against Purdue.
Against Purdue, yeah.
I would say, Nebraska's kind of crappy, but
you have to go away to Nebraska, but yeah.
You do. January 30th, road game against Michigan. Interesting matchup. I'm gonna say Indiana wins that one. I feel like Indiana's kind of due for a good win against the Wolverines there. Really hasn't happened since Yogi Ferrell went crazy in that game. He went on like a 27-0 run. So I've got to win. You?
I also got to win against Michigan. I think we match up really well against Michigan when I'm looking back at it, especially now that they lost their scrappy little point guard that can just throw hook shots at us. I don't want to see any more of Xavier Simpson ever again, please and thank you.
No sky hooks for Xavier Simpson. You're not a fan, huh? All right, home Illinois. I've got IU bouncing back here, getting the split with the Illini. I think that's going to be an awesome game to watch. You rank them, we spank them. Matt, February 2nd, Illinois comes to Bloomington. Your thoughts?
I like Illinois a lot. I think Onsumu is one of the best players in the country. I think he's my favorite to win the Wooden Player, the National Player of the Year. Nice. So I think Illinois wins this game, but I do think this will be a really close, like almost overtime game-winning shot. Award-winning material for Iowa. Yeah, I know it's gonna hurt, but we just beat Michigan, and we beat Michigan State and Iowa, so we'll be fine.
So at this point, you've got Indiana at 4 straight Big Ten road wins, but back-to-back Big Ten home losses.
It's 2020. At this point, it's 2021, but
it's still 2020.
Anything is possible. It's the 2020 season. Anything's possible.
So it's interesting. To this point, we've both got IU 8-4, but the loss is coming in all sorts of.
But I would also like to point out, and before I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this year there's not going to be fans. So I'd also point out the non-road split to me doesn't matter as much as it did in the past because you don't have 17,000 people screaming at you. So I think it comes down to coaching matchups and player matchups because that's what it comes down to me.
Oh, absolutely. And especially in a conference like the Big Ten where out of the 14 teams, it feels like 12 or 13 have great home environments. So it's always a little tough there. February 7th, those overrated Hawkeyes, Matt, they come to Bloomington. I think Indiana does get the win against this team as the Hoosiers start hitting their stride. Same for you?
Hoosiers get the sweep, and this is the loss that puts Iowa basically out of contention for the Big Ten title. And Fran McCaffrey loses his damn mind on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, he would lose his mind no matter who the opponent is.
That's true.
So there's that. February 10th, a road game at Northwestern. Matt, come on, right? Nothing stupid.
I'm not even. Actually, I'm a little bit scared. They played us really close last year, but I think this year's team is better than last year's team, in my opinion. When we do like full year predictions in a second, they'll be better. So give me Indiana.
I like that. Yeah. Look, I've been there. Road game at Ohio State, February 13th. Ohio State is ranked in the preseason top 25. They're 24th. I think Indiana loses this game. Columbus always seems like a weird place. It's going to be a little bit of a letdown after a lot of hard games. It's a gauntlet of a schedule. I've got a loss here. How about you?
Hey, the guys going to be too focused on Valentine's Day, so give me a loss.
Man, that's I need to go back and look now. Indiana's performance around February 14th. They return home to play Minnesota on Feb 17. I've got the Hoosiers winning that. Do you?
I also have the Hoosiers winning that. I do think Minnesota might be better than some people think they might be this year. No.
No, I mean, I don't really feel all that great about Richard Pitino as a basketball coach either, and they're going to be struggling.
I don't like anybody with the last name Pitino, and
good point guard, right? Good point guard and Marcus Carr, but Indiana, Rob Finney always seems to go up against him pretty well. It's just when they have those nasty wings and forwards like they've had in previous years.
Their team last year was Oturu. Let's just. Carr is good.
Carr was good. Yeah. He was good. But
they
now
carried by Oturu. Oturu was everything. So
exactly. 4 games left in this 20-game Big Ten slate. Michigan State comes to Bloomington. I think IU actually trips up here again against the Spartans. MSU gets the sweep of IU. Matt, do you think Michigan State wins coming to Bloomington on Feb 20?
I mean, I'm mad about the sweep, but a positive Andy win.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. You got to win there. Then you head to Rutgers. Always a tough place to play. It's going to be even weirder with no fans in attendance. I guess just to be clear, the Big Ten has not instituted a policy for the whole season yet. To start off with, Indiana at least has explicitly said they're not going to allow people like you and me to get tickets to games at Assembly Hall. So End of February, what happens, I don't know. But hey, tough game here at Rutgers. I don't think the Hoosiers win this one. Do you?
I agree. I don't think they win. We sweep Michigan State and then get swept by Rutgers.
Big Ten, man.
Yeah.
Big Ten basketball. I mean, every team really feels like they're a tough matchup, except for maybe one or two of these. Michigan comes to Bloomington on February 27th. Just generally speaking, there are about 2 to 3 days off between each of these games. There are a couple of longer breaks. Indiana's got a stretch here where they play a game basically, every 3 or 4 days. Michigan comes to Bloomington. Matt, how do you feel about this matchup at the end of February?
I'm just looking at the final 3 games and I'm thinking I was originally going to put this as a loss, but I'm not sure if I could live with myself if we had 3 straight losses going into the Big Ten tournament. I think I'd be way too worried. So I have to pick one of these as a win, and I'm going to go with us at home against Michigan. So This is a W.
Okay, I also have this as a win. I think Michigan's a good team. But I also think the Hoosiers will get some W's that they wouldn't normally get in prior seasons. So I've got this as a win. And then you round it out after a week off. You head to Purdue to wrap up the regular season. A very strange bit of scheduling here. Again, a week off before the regular season finale at Purdue. I think Indiana sweeps the Boilermakers this year. I think they win it in West Lafayette. Based on what you were saying earlier, I don't think you are that confident.
I'm not. I think this is about the right time of the year where Painter has his team playing the best, and he's kind of figured out who's replacing Hunter's minutes and contributions. And I like Purdue's team as much as it hurts me to say that. I like Purdue's team, so I think Purdue beats us at home, and we split. Each team wins at home for this. So
here you go. And incredibly enough, after all that, we both have Indiana going 13-7 in Big Ten play. The losses came all over the place. It looks like the only games where we agreed on Indiana losing. They were spread out, actually. We both think they're going to lose at Illinois, at Wisconsin, at Ohio State, and at Rutgers. So hey, we'll see how this all plays out. I have Indiana also winning 5 non-conference games just because I do think they'll end up playing North Carolina when it's all said and done. I'm baking in one loss in Maui. I'm baking in the loss at Florida State. So I got IU winning 5 non-conference, 13 Big Ten, 18 overall, and so do you. How about that, Matt?
I mean, great minds think alike. But now I'm looking at it, 13-7. There's going to have to be a lot of things that go right for us to end up at 13-7.
Yeah.
Because 13-7 is going to – this team is very, very, very competitive conference. I think the winner of the conference is going to be sitting at 15 wins when this is all said and done.
Yeah.
And we'll be sitting at 13, which is 2 games off the lead for the Big Ten title, which is absurd to me that that's going to be even possible with this team. But I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are going. Like the worst record in the league is going to be like I think somebody Northwestern or Penn State is going to go 0-20. I don't think they're going to win a Big Ten game. One of them. But I think a lot of people are going to end up around that 10-10, 11-9 range in this conference, just because everybody's going to be beating each other up in the face.
Yeah, and what's crazy is, right, we haven't even gotten into the world of possible cancellations and things like that, which college basketball has been hit by quite a bit in the build up to the first day of the season on the Wednesday night of this week. So, who knows what games certain teams miss, what teams certain games get to play. All that are questions we'll have to ask ourselves as this year goes on. So, 27 game schedule. We both have Indiana going 18-9. Of course, if I gets to 20 wins, unlike last season, we had 31 games. This is a 27 game slate. So 20 would be really impressive. I'm optimistic about this team. I think they've got a lot to offer. I think they've got a lot of options. Trace Jackson Davis, I think, is a superstar, and he's going to be a first team All Big Ten guy when it's all said and done this year. So that's where I see this team going. We sent out a poll on Indiana HQ earlier over on Twitter. Definitely go and vote if you haven't yet. It'll be up for a few days. Fill in the blank, Matt. it's blank or bust for IU basketball this season. It's blank or bust. Do you think it's making the tournament? Do you think it's winning a game in the tournament? How far are you going to go to say it's blank or bust for IU basketball this year?
I mean, it is IU basketball. And when you look at, it's Archie's fourth year. When you look at coaches that are going to succeed in their programs that take a jump in their fourth year, I would say it's finishing inside the top 6 or 7 teams in the conference. I mean, upper 50% of the Big Ten, and making a run and reaching the second weekend of the Big Ten tournament. The NCAA, that's the only tournament that happened last year. The NCAA tournament. We have to reach the Sweet 16, and we have to finish in the upper half of the conference. I don't care if we finish 9th and we reach the Sweet 16. Underperforming in the conference is not acceptable at this point. We have to make some improvements. In last couple years finishes, we've been mediocre at best. I think this is a good season, and it's a great sign if the program finishes in that 5 to 6 range in the conference, just outside of the top tier, and then makes it to the second weekend of the tournament. That to me is an extremely good sign.
Yeah. I love that. Maybe this is going to sound contradictory to a lot of people, because I just said Indiana's going to go out and win 18 out of 27 games this year. But as far as, blank or bust, I think it's, you've got to make the NCAA tournament. I mean, you've got to make it. You've got to play in it. You've got to get that name out there for IU basketball. Maybe I'm getting it a little soft here towards the end of this show, but that's where I see it as far as, blank or bust. Our poll results are more in line with your thoughts. The majority of people in our poll say you got to win at least a tournament game. I know you said push it a little further. Our majority of people in our poll say win a tournament game. That was 39% of respondents. 34% say second weekend at least. I mean, you've got to get to the second weekend. You got to make a Sweet 16 run. So right there, those are really the good chunk of people who answered our poll. 14% say make the NCAA tournament, and 13% just say beat Purdue. I mean, everybody says make the tournament, right? I think adding that all together, that's more than 80% of polls. Exactly.
Which is obvious. At this point, if Archie doesn't make the tournament in his fourth year, he should be fired. And I am not mincing words on that. Yeah. We should be looking for a new head coach in the offseason. We'll be talking about in March who the next up-and-coming coaches are, who we can afford to buy up. Because, look, we have a new AD in Scott Dolson, who's going to want to put his mark on what is the Marquee program, and he's a former IU basketball manager as well. So don't come at me saying that, Archie has a year leash or whatever. He does not. He is firmly on the hot seat, by the way, and should be, because his last 3 years haven't been great. He completely underperformed with the Romeo and Jawan year. Those are 2 NBA players that he had on our team, and he could not figure it out in his second year. Fine. Third year did not go as well as we thought it was going to go. We would have made the tournament. Okay, that's great. But the fourth year needs to be the year he takes a jump. And if he does not, he can go and join Sean in Arizona and have some nice weather, in my opinion.
Normally I would ask you at the end of our episode what your final thoughts are, but I have a hard time seeing you come up with something stronger than that. I mean, is there anything else on your mind, Matt?
I mean, no. If I conjure up some good luck for my Eagles. No. Overall thoughts on the upcoming season. I do think that the last couple of years we've been talking about, we need just a couple positive things to happen and IU will be good, and none of them have happened. So I think the karma gods have been saving up all the positives. They've put it all into one large basket, and they're just gonna drop it on our heads because 2020 has sucked. And we deserve better. And so they're going to drop a nice love basket, including a nice IU football freshener on our heads. Ooh. And we're going to get a nice Christmas/Easter present, Easter basket, in the NCAA tournament. We're going to have a nice season, and we're going to go in a nice run in the NCAA tournament. And all is going to be good in Hoosierville.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I share a lot of the thoughts that you had, especially when you consider, some of the expectations that you mentioned might be a little bit ambitious. I don't see it that way. I think a lot of what you say is stuff that I believe in, especially when you look at this roster, right? The roster has always been a crutch for Archie defenders for a long time. Say, oh, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. This roster is good enough. I mean, you've got Archie's guys in. Can't use that as an excuse anymore, except for Al Durham. But come on, he's been here for all 4 years of Archie Miller. So let's go. The team is good. They've got guys who can play inside. They've got good defenders. The Ken Palm ratings have them in the top 30. This is your moment. Indiana's got a shot to do something really good this year. And that's where we are. It starts Wednesday night against Tennessee Tech. Again, if Indiana loses, we will be right back here on Thursday. But assuming they take care of business, Maui's going to be interesting. You've got a lot of quality teams in that field. Providence is good. Texas is good. North Carolina is good. Stanford's getting some publicity here as we head into the season. So all ships sail here as Indiana gets a really, what's the word? It's like a really interesting season. I know it's a really basic word to use, but it's a pivotal season. It's an interesting season, and it all starts here on Wednesday night.
It's an ominous season.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. It's interesting, but hopefully we have just as much good news about IU basketball as we've had about IU football here over the last handful of weeks, because that's been really fun to watch. But that about wraps it up. For our 170th show of the Hoosier Sound. 170, that's a great number to say. Thank you so much for those of you joining us. We really appreciate your support. Thank you to our live audience. You guys are all amazing people. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us over at Indiana HQ to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. Lastly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.